Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing really amazing. I just wanted to follow up to a recent post that I made about the Roxiva audio brainwave entrainment device. The most recent post that I had was me laying underneath the lamp and playing a 6-minute recording of the Welcome to Roxiva program. And in that program, you can hear the audio talking about what Roxiva is and how it works. It is an audio-visual brainwave entrainment device that flickers at different speeds and frequencies, light intensities, and allows your brain to get into different brainwaves, right? So like theta or gamma, alpha, so on and so forth. And I've been using a brainwave entrainment device for a number of years now. The first device that I got was called the Pandora Star, and it was developed by Lance Carter and a couple other people, Jimmy Simpson, and those two individuals ended up breaking off and creating another company to bring the second generation and changed the name up to Roxiva and added a bunch of different features to it. So at the beginning of this year, I ended up selling my old device. So after handing down my device, I took the money and a little bit of extra that I had saved up and bought the new Roxiva RX1. It took me a while to kind of let go, let go of the old device, but once the Roxiva came and I played around with it for a number of hours, I fell in love with it. There's so many different features on here as far as audio synced up with the visuals or with the light, and just a lot of capabilities that are coming in the future as far as being able to control it with a phone app. Very cool stuff. So in using this brainwave entrainment device, I've sat underneath it many times, using it for meditation and relaxation, kind of energy boost depending on what brainwave state you're getting into, and even having visual experiences, so kind of mimicking psychedelics in a way. I know a lot of people are starting to work with psychedelics, experiment with psychedelics, especially in like therapeutic setting. And I wanted to talk about that actually in my experiences. I know a lot of people know that I've been on a plant medicine path for a number of years now. I've openly talked about my use of ayahuasca, which started back in 2018. I've done many other things, LSD, psilocybin mushrooms, MDMA, and more recently ketamine. And I've developed a relationship with ketamine over the last few years, and it's gotten pretty extensive. I know a lot of people, especially here in Columbus, are starting to see billboards pop up talking about ketamine therapy, ketamine infusions. And my relationship with ketamine, I first heard about it at music festivals, right? And kind of viewed it as a party drug. I think it was even explained to me as like a horse tranquilizer, and it was something that in the party scene I was like, it's not for me, just not my cup of tea. And until, I don't know, probably 2020 or 2021, I was introduced to it in kind of a party setting, but also in like a healing space. Lots of dancing, lots of movement, lots of intentional use around it, using it as a non-prescribed molecule, but having, again, a lot of attention around it. So using it and then kind of diving into some deeper questions about life, and being able to, be in that disassociative space and remove, emotions and feelings around really either traumatic things or really emotionally charged situations. And you kind of get to take a step aside and look at things from a different angle. And so that was the beginning of my journey with ketamine. And So again, 2021, 2022, around there, I was going through a really hard time. So were a lot of other people. It was the COVID years. Um, I had walked away from a really important relationship at the time. I got fired from my first job. Obviously, COVID was happening. Went into a really deep, dark depression, and was working with psychedelics to help move a lot of that stuck energy. And when you start diving into the use of psychedelics in therapeutic settings, yes, it's very helpful, but you're also peeling back a lot of layers, right? And you're digging deep down to your core, back to your authentic self. And in doing that, you can uncover a lot of things, and giving you new perspectives. And the psychedelics are a great tool, but the integration is the most important part. And during those years, I had a lot of great sessions, had a lot of great integration, but also I had just a lot of great experiences that kind of led me to look at things. And it's your choice on how you're going to integrate that. And sometimes you're going to fall off the horse, right? Sometimes you're going to repeat patterns and repeat lessons until you're ready to learn and maybe move on or move through or heal those experiences. And that all takes time. And so I was able to come out about my sexuality and address things in my life with certain people, whether that was romantic relationships or personal relationships with family and friends, and was able to have like really deep conversations and process a lot of things. So bringing it back to my use with ketamine, specifically in psychedelic therapy, I hadn't really entered into a therapy or psychotherapy experience with psychedelics. A lot of mine came from the plant medicine community. So ayahuasca ceremonies, psilocybin mushroom ceremonies. And a lot of these are performed, I don't want to say performed, I would say facilitated by Western practitioners that have studied down in Peru or South America with ayahuasca specifically. And even more traditional indigenous people from those countries come into the United States to also offer the medicine. So that was mostly my experience with using psychedelics in a healing space. And it wasn't until 2024 did I used prescribed ketamine. And my first experience with prescribed ketamine came through a company called Joyous. And Joyous is an at-home ketamine therapy. You go through kind of a telehealth evaluation, talk about your life and what you're going through, and then a nurse practitioner decides whether this is a good approach for you. And I was lucky enough to be accepted into the program, or by the company, to be prescribed at-home ketamine use through a little gel tablet called a troche. And a troche is an oral administration of ketamine. You put it in your mouth, it dissolves, and then you start feeling the effects of ketamine. And it was really great. I enjoyed the program. I was on it from March 2024 to October 2024. So I don't know, 6 to 8 months, whatever it was. And got a lot of benefits out of it. I was going through a really difficult time in January, February of last year, coming out of those winter blues, depression, and just a lot of things going on in my life that I really felt like I needed to explore this option a little bit more from a therapeutic setting. And the program was set up. You have a lot of integration, a lot of meditation, a lot of tools that they give you while you're taking the oral ketamine to kind of help facilitate and really maximize the benefits of that molecule or that medicine. And so, I took it for about 6 to 8 months, and I kind of felt like things were on the up and up. I kind of wanted to taper off of it. I also wanted to save some money. I had gotten a new job last year, felt like things were really changing in my life, and felt really good. And so I stopped taking the medication in October, and and it was really great. Just kind of leaned into my job and focused in on that. And then fast forwarding to like December, January 2024 to 2025, winter started to set in. We didn't get as much sun here in Ohio. And that's when I tend to get a little depressed and in the winter blues. And also, I kind of felt a little stressed out, about my job, or stressed out about romantic relationships. And winter is this rest period for a lot of people, and I don't feel like I was in a situation where I had time to do a lot of resting and a lot of reflecting. It was actually quite the opposite. And I said yes to a lot of things at work. I said yes to a lot of things in my personal life. I'm a people pleaser by nature, have been my whole life, and I just kind of got myself into some situations where I started feeling really stressed out again. Lots of anxiety, and anxiety is another thing in addition to depression that I've struggled with my whole life. A lot of people don't know that about me. It's not something a lot of people talk about, with all the labels that come with it, especially if you get of like clinical diagnosis. It's difficult to talk about. And I was somebody who grew up not really believing in pharmaceuticals. I tried antidepressants when I was really young, in my younger 20s, and didn't like them. I didn't like seeing family members or friends who were on antidepressants and, just kind of having that blank stare, and not really feeling any emotion at all. And it's not that I don't want to feel emotions, it's that I don't want to be, so depressed and have so much anxiety that I end up becoming really unhealthy and not taking care of myself. And so as I started getting deeper into depression, deeper into anxiety, and not really taking care of myself, I knew that something had to change. And it wasn't just, interpersonal relationships or things that were going on at work. I really felt like I needed to step up and own the fact that, there's something going on with me, and it's some of it is internal, right? And in my brain and in my body. And so I started reaching out to a few people and, kind of talking about my level of depression, my level of anxiety, and was lucky enough to get in touch with a group called LuminaThera. And LuminaThera is a CAP program. And CAP stands for Ketamine Assisted Psychotherapy. And so I filled out the application, had my introductory call with the people that run this group, and again was fortunate enough to be accepted. They do small group therapy with ketamine, and I was just so grateful because I really needed this in my life. And the program actually just ended. It was a 7-week program, and the way that it was structured is that I believe it was about 25 contact hours throughout the 7 weeks. And the group had 3 kind of like preliminary group therapy sessions. It was a very small group. And I'd never been in a group therapy situation before. I had done individual therapy at different times in my life, maybe 6 months or a year here and there. I'm 40 now, probably been in and out of therapy 3 to 5 times in my life. But again, this is my first group therapy experience. And it was a really beautiful experience. I can only speak on my individual experience just out of respect to everybody that was in the group. And, I got to talk about my depression. I got to talk about my anxiety. I got to talk about, things that had happened in my life that maybe contributed to being depressed and having a lot of anxiety. And not going to go into too much detail there. But there is one thing, that I think is really important that I learned during this group session, and it can be a little controversial to talk about. It can be difficult for people to hear, and that is around the topic of suicide. And, you know, suicide actually runs in my family, and my maternal grandmother, so my mom's mom, committed suicide when my mom was 12. I never got to meet this person, but it did have a very big impact on my family. Obviously, my mother. And sorry, Mom, if I'm sharing too much information, but I think it's really important to tell our stories so that other people can lean into them and maybe find some healing or direction on how to work around, or not work around, but work with, suicide. And so I'd read a book that talked about generational trauma. And I can't remember the name of the book off the top of my head while I'm in this meditative state and also trying to talk to you all at the same time. And I hope I'm recording, because this has been really good so far. Yes, it is recording. And I'm getting a little nervous to talk about this, actually. And so generational trauma can be passed down, obviously through generations. And I learned that, as my mother is 12 years old, I'm actually an egg inside her body. And so the trauma that she had experienced with her mother's suicide, that trauma was, stored in her body and passed down to me, I believe. And, so we were greatly affected by that. And, I'll continue on as I got, as I was born and came into this world and grew up and, went through life. And middle school and high school, there were these challenges that would come up. And, I'm just kind of an emotional person. And really, as a man, was always, taught to kind of suppress those, and not just parents or friends, but society as a whole kind of teaches men to suppress those feelings, and be tough, right? We don't want to show emotion. We don't want to show weakness, and a lot of that internalized emotions, along with internalized like homophobia or the fear of coming out as sexually fluid. And there's a pretty good list of other life challenges that contributed to being depressed and anxious growing up, and not really knowing how to like express that. And that energy just built up inside, right? Where I would have thoughts about, well, I can't express this sexual side of myself because society says it's not good, or friends or family will hate me or not like me. And so you internalize that, right? And you're like, if people find out this about me, like I'll have to end my life, because I can't live with the shame or the guilt that if people find out, like I'm gonna be a bad person, or people aren't going to like me. And that's one example. But also, like, life is really difficult sometimes, and if we don't have the tools and the skills to help move some of that energy, some of that depression, some of that anxiety, it can build up for some of us so much that like it's almost unbearable. Like I would rather not be here anymore than have to deal with this depression or this anxiety. And I never was really like honest about what that was like to like internalize that growing up. And so, fast forwarding to my beginning journey of working with ayahuasca, I really felt like this was going to help me. And one of the contraindications, or one of the things that plant medicine facilitators look for is, again, contraindications. Are you bipolar? Are you schizophrenic? Are you suicidal? And so with those contraindications, obviously, suicidal thoughts was one that I had looked at, and I said, well, like, I've never made a plan to take my life. So I should be okay. Like, I can lie about this, or I can not talk about it and just move forward. And I carried a lot of guilt around that, but there was something deep down inside of me that I knew that I had called this experience of working with ayahuasca into my life, because I knew it was going to be the start of my healing journey. And I wasn't wrong, at all. And throughout my time of using ayahuasca, I was, again, able to heal a lot of things in my life. I was able to let go a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of negative beliefs about myself. And it wasn't until recently that I was actually able to let go of some of that guilt and shame around not talking about suicide or suicidal thoughts or suicide within my family, not just with my maternal grandmother, but not just my maternal grandmother, but I had another family member, and um, challenging, right? And not just family members, but I've also had friends. Another acquaintance of mine actually took their life a couple weeks ago. And so there's so many people that are out there struggling, and not knowing how to ask for help or look for help, or even like where to go, right? Just really, really struggling. And so back to my most recent experience in working with ketamine assisted psychotherapy, I talked about my individual experience around suicide within family, with friends, and was able to talk about my thoughts of my emotions being so strong that I would rather not be here than have to suffer and deal with my experiences. And the facilitator of the CAT program, asked me, like, what do you think those, like, suicidal thoughts are? I said, I don't know. They're just like thoughts that I don't want to have anymore. I want to get rid of them. And, society seems to also want that for people. They either want to put you on antidepressants or something to kind of cover up, these really intense emotions that you have. And so the practitioner, facilitator, psychotherapist, whatever label you want to give this person, asked me, like, have you ever thought of, like, befriending these thoughts that you have? Have you ever, like, sat down and asked these thoughts, like, what are you? Why are you here? And, this facilitator asked me, like, do you think you could lean in to those suicidal thoughts? And this person said, not to engage with them or carry out these thoughts. I'm not saying to do that. What I'm saying is sit next to these thoughts and ask them, what are you trying to tell me? Why are you here right now in my life? You come and go at different periods in my life. Why are you showing up right now? And I sat with that for at least a week. And I was like, my goodness, no one has ever put it that way. And in doing that, I was able to, like, process and understand, like, oh, why are these intense emotions coming up? What are things trying to tell me right now? And I was able to befriend these really intense thoughts. And in doing that, I was able to like let go. I was able to process. I was able to say thank you. Thank you for showing up and guiding me in a way to make changes in my life. Whether that's, shifting a relationship, or speaking up for myself, or making changes that can, eating healthier, or working out, or again, just making changes in your life to kind of put the depression and the anxiety at ease, and allow yourself to like start to heal and come out. And, you know, I always hated when I had like depression or anxiety, when people would be like, oh, you just got to go out with your friends, and you just got to go work out, and you just got to eat healthier. And for people who don't like have debilitating depression or debilitating anxiety, they don't understand that when you get into those states, just getting out of bed that day is like a success, right? Just eating one meal a day is like a success sometimes. And so it was always a challenge for people, like, oh, you just got to be happy, or you just got to do these things and it'll help. And yes, it does. It definitely does. However, when you're in such a deep, dark place, it's really hard to come out of that hole. So anyways, I just wanted to share, that really deep personal experience, because this CAP program, ketamine assisted psychotherapy, really helped me over the last 7 weeks. And I can't express enough how much it was life-changing for me. And so that was probably the big impact. There were a lot of other, major things that happened. And I'm not going to go into all of it, but, we had like 3 pre-molecule sessions. So it was just like basic therapy for 3 sessions. Then there were 4 ketamine sessions, where after 2 days of each administered session of ketamine, there would be an integration experience where the group would come together and talk about their ketamine experience, right? And so it was a build up. The first one was an oral administration, and then the second, third, and fourth was actually IM, or intramuscular, and the doses increased every time as we got more experienced. And it's about maybe just a week ago. Yeah, just last Thursday I had my last session, and it was one of the most impactful experiences I've ever had in my entire life. Very different from ayahuasca or magic mushrooms, MDMA, even non-prescribed and prescribed ketamine before, the story that I was telling you before. These intramuscular administration of ketamine was unbelievable. The session lasted an hour, and the time that I came out of it, right after, the day after, 2 days after, like the level of depression and anxiety had almost, I don't want to say instantaneously lifted, but I would say shifted very quickly, very, very quickly. I was able to like let go of a lot of things that I was holding on to. And such an impactful experience. Like, it's just, it was unbelievable. And so if there's anybody, on the fence about looking into ketamine as a way to help you with depression or anxiety, I would highly, highly recommend looking into some of these at-home companies, telehealth companies. That might be a great start for you, to work with prescribed ketamine. I'm not recommending using unprescribed ketamine. You do what you want, right? But if you're looking to get a prescription, Joyous is a program that I was successful with. I know there's Mind Bloom. I know there's other ones out there. But then if you're looking to get into maybe a deeper relationship that's combined with psychotherapy, I would recommend LuminaThera and CAP, ketamine assisted psychotherapy. They're having another cohort here in Columbus in September. So you can go to their website, luminathera.com, I believe, and start doing a little bit of research. There's other things out there too, like ketamine infusion clinics that are kind of popping up. I did try to go to one of those, and I was not accepted because I did not have a recent history of using antidepressants, and the government and all these regulations really want you to have treatment resistant depression, meaning that you have to have a history of at least using 2 different antidepressants for a number of months or years with no results or little results to be able to qualify for ketamine infusions. So I was instantly denied. I said, they said, you have to try antidepressants first. And I said, I'm not doing that. I know what works for me, and this is the path for me, and I will find a way to get the medicine that I feel is going to work best for me. And being a person that resists taking pharmaceuticals, I've never been on daily medication my whole life. I've taken things here and there, but never a daily medication. And so Joyous was the first time where I was taking a daily medication, and I'm not taking any daily medications right now, but I might get back onto Joyous. I think it's great. But I'm actually wanting to dive deeper into the CAP program with ketamine assisted psychotherapy. And now that I'm out of the group, I'm able to continue my path on an individual basis. And I'm looking to do that now. Now, ketamine is not covered by most insurances right now. I think that's going to change over the next 3 to 5 years, maybe even longer. But it's kind of like the marijuana thing. In the beginning, people could get a prescription, but only if they had like stage 4 cancer or leukemia. And then obviously over decades, you can have a hangnail and go get your prescription to get that taken care of. I don't know if they'll approve ketamine for hangnail, but you kind of get where I'm going with it, is that I think the regulations, once the research and the data comes back, that this is a monumental shift in treating depression and anxiety, PTSD, so on and so forth. And so, yeah, I'm going to make another video, maybe talking about my CAP experience, maybe not. I think I painted a picture really well. And what I'm going to do is kind of tying this back into the beginning of the video, the Roxiva. I used a lot of unprescribed and prescribed ketamine underneath the light, and the combination of the two, when they run concurrent with each other, is unbelievable. To be able to put your brainwave in these different states, whether it's gamma or alpha or theta or whatever it is, you're able to enhance the experience and really process. And so I am trying to work with the facilitators of the CAP program to see if I might be able to use the light during my individual sessions. We haven't agreed upon anything, but I did recommend or suggest, like, hey, maybe I could use it before, maybe I could use it after. And if you're open to it, I'd like to try it during. And there are a couple doctors out there that are pioneering using this light with ketamine and assisted psychotherapy. And I would like to be on the forefront of pioneering that research, because I just know from my own personal experience at home using ketamine that it was monumental. And to be able to add psychotherapy on top of that, I have no doubt in my mind that I will be able to really lean into the neuroplasticity or the ability to create new neural connections and new neural pathways in my brain. And if you don't know what that is, definitely research it. Maybe I'll make another video talking about it. But yeah, a little bit all over the place. But since I've had this light, I actually became a sales rep for Roxiva, and so I can sell these lights and get a commission off of them. And I haven't really spoken about it. I haven't really pursued anybody here in the Columbus or the Ohio area about selling these devices, but I do receive a commission on them. So if you're interested, or know of somebody who might be interested in one of these devices, either for their wellness center or at-home use, or kind of like a massage or even psychotherapy, please put them in touch with me, because the money that I make from selling these devices is going to go straight to the ketamine research that I'm going to be doing independently, and hopefully in conjunction with LuminaThera or another CAP program, or any psychotherapist that is open to working with psychedelics and brainwave entrainment devices. So thanks for tuning in. I know this is a really long video, but thank you. And I really hope that my story inspired you. Please feel free to ask questions, leave comments, and yeah, looking forward to talking about this more.